Oh my God, this is just technically problematic. See, is that you out there? That was a mistake. All right, so I don't know why I did that. That was a mistake. I didn't realize it would shut off the stream by trying to refresh the page. That was not the right choice. I chose poorly on that one. What I should have done is just gone to the. I should have just used the phone and used the chat from the phone. That would have been much smarter to do it. Not too brilliant. So drop me down what you're smoking now. What's going on? This one's going pretty well. It's holding up its own. It's not too bad. I see your message now, Rusty. Although it does tell me the chat disconnected again. Well, I guess you're back. Okay, so next step connected. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. That was probably a bad idea to try to refresh the screen. Because, one time I had it where the screen closed and the stream didn't stop. It was still feeding a live stream. So I wasn't able to close the stream. It was very strange, but, All right, we're back. We're still here. We're rolling back again. So the cigar now has changed a little bit. It has changed. At this point now, it's starting to change. So that tobacco, that barnyard, that leatheriness has just kind of mellowed out. It's become more creamy. So pretty pleasant, pretty pleasant. So what else I read online is that PBR evidently has this thing called small batch exclusives that are being shipped to the stores this week. I'm not sure who's getting it. Maybe Tony, if you're getting it, that'd be interesting. But basically, these are cigars that were forgotten in their warehouse. So from what I read, it was in 2014, these cigars were made for some European company that went out of business. And they kind of got lost in their warehouse in the Dominican Republic. And I guess they just found them recently. They're already rolled. They're Cuban seed wrapper from Brazil with Dominican Criollo 98 binder and Dominican and Nicaraguan fillers. And then, so that's one. There's two different blends. And so that's basically one. And then the other one has the same filler and binder, but has a Mexican San Andres wrapper. And then it comes in two sizes, Robusto and Toro, and should be right around $5 or so. Evidently, they're coming out in 5-packs for about $28 to $26. So I'm actually kind of interested because, you're talking about cigars that were rolled 6 years ago. So if they're only $5, I mean, that could be a great deal. Yeah, so on my server, on my system, it tells me that there's been the chat disconnects, the chat reconnects. I'm thinking that maybe there's something to do with like the Wi-Fi system. You know what I've been reading about with like live streams, that ideally you should be running hard lines, so basically running Ethernet lines to the computer from your hub, your router. And I think I have to run that because sometimes it does get a little bit wonky. Like I was watching this one guy, and he's much more advanced. This guy named Pat Flynn. He has a live stream. He does a daily live stream called the Income Stream. It's pretty interesting. But in one of his episodes, he was showing us his upload speeds, his download and upload speeds, like when he does the speed test. And he was getting for both download and upload speeds of like 92 kilobits a second. I mean, craziness. Or megabits per second. Like, here I'll get maybe 5. 5 is really good using a Wi-Fi system. So I think probably the best way to go is I have to work on getting some of this stuff wired. Like I have to run Ethernet. Basically, I have to run it through the ceiling to different points. So the system is dropping the connections for the chat. So let me see if I can find it here on my. Oh, the presidential debate is on. Can't imagine what kind of cluster that is. I haven't really watched any of these debates or anything, mainly because I think I just figured it'd be craziness, and there's really not much that anyone's going to say that's going to influence how I'm going to vote next week. Next week or 2 weeks from now, whatever the week is. Let me see if I can pull this up. Here we are. Here we go. Let me see if I can pull this up. Here we are. Here we go. Oh, I can hear myself now. Oh, I can hear myself now. Ah, good. Tony says it's back. Good. No doubt. Rusty says, don't watch. If you don't know who you're voting for by now, something's wrong. That's for sure. Yeah, I wonder, like, who are these people that are like sitting around and they're kind of like undecided? I don't understand. How can you be undecided still? I mean, either you found that the current president is championing, freedom and making America great again, or you don't. It's 4 years, for God's sake. Where have you been living? But I did decide that I was going to vote in person because where I live is a pretty benign area. Like there's not too much for me to worry about, I think. But man, seems there's a lot of craziness out there. I don't know. Basically, I sit around making coffee all day long, so I have no really idea what's happening outside of making coffee. But I have started to try to do this TikTok thing. So I started my first TikTok today, and evidently, if you search on TikTok, right, there's all these different genres out there. Like it's not just young people dancing. There's a lot of that. And I'm not saying that I won't be dancing. Maybe I will. Some of my nieces are doing it, and I really don't understand. So I did one about making a cappuccino. I don't really understand if I did it correctly or even in an interesting way for people, but I was surprised. I did a search, so you could search, of course, on TikTok, right? So I did a search on coffee, just coffee. And some of these guys were getting millions of views. It's like, wow, millions of views. And they're just making coffee. It's like amazing. It's a whole different world than like YouTube. So here we are. We're still rolling with this cigar. Like I was saying earlier, like the first third, got that like leathery barnyard tobacco. It was kind of punchy, right? Now it's kind of gotten mellow and just kind of flattened out. And for me, it's not terribly interesting at the moment. So I'm right at the point where it's starting to burn into where the bands were. Speaking of the presidential thing, I always thought it'd be kind of interesting to be president myself, mainly because he's got that plane, and I kind of dig the plane. But if I was president of the United States, I think I would be taking that plane and flying just about everywhere, pretty much most of the time. So you know how this current president, Trump, like he plays golf all the time. If it was me as president, I'd be traveling around the world all the time. Be like, this week the president is, in Africa. This week the president's in Thailand. This week the president's in Switzerland. The president hasn't been home in 275 days. I mean, as president, you get this great plane, right? Fly anywhere in the world. Anything happens to you, there's military jets to shoot everybody else down. And then if they try to attack you, then you just go kill them all. It's really fantastic. And then wherever you go, you get the presidential suite. That's brilliant. I'd be sitting there on Air Force One. I'd be smoking big cigars. None of this Corona Gordo. We'd be Toro and bigger. Churchills, big torpedoes. I'd have like people rolling big old fat torpedoes. CNN would be like, the president smokes too many cigars. President has been home in 300 days. Then there's the University of Bath in the United Kingdom. They recently did a study. They only used 29 people, but they did a study about coffee and discovered that drinking coffee before you have breakfast may actually be bad for your health. Something about if you have coffee before you eat a breakfast, like a sugary breakfast, like if you're having pancakes or cereal, it will hinder your body's. It will hinder your body's ability to process that sugar. Now I don't know what that really means. Like, does that mean you just become diabetic and like you're going to have like diabetic shock? I'm not sure, but it supposedly does hinder your body's ability to process the sugars, which evidently is a bad thing. So don't drink coffee before you have breakfast. Drink coffee with breakfast. I see, you're back. Thank you for coming back. Sorry about the glitches. There's been I'm still trying to figure out all this technology stuff for YouTube and live streaming. But do tell me in the chat what you're thinking, what you're smoking, what you're drinking now. I do want to know. Like, I don't know if the system is working, but I have the phone, and the phone is running the stream as well. See, you can see me. Huh? Uh-huh. Look at that. I do look nice in that, huh? Oh, look at that. That's nice, too. All right. So what do you guys have for dinner tonight? Tonight, I made roasted chicken thighs. Really simple way to do it. You just season the chicken. So I take like 2 chicken thighs, right? And I'm using a carbon steel skillet from De Bouillet. But you can use anything you want, anything that can go in an oven. So it could be cast iron, it could be a stainless skillet, any kind of skillet that you have that can go in an oven. So if you have Le Creuset, like enameled cast iron with the wood handle, that's not going to work. Your wood handle will char, will burn, may catch on fire. The glazing will definitely like bubble. That will be a problem. And your beautiful Le Creuset will look terrible after that. So don't use that. Use something that has a metal handle. So what I do is like with the carbon steel or the cast iron, I guess if I use a stainless steel skillet, I'd use the same thing. But basically, you put that in the oven. You jack up the temperature. So I usually run 375, 400. I don't really know. I kind of have a feel for where on my oven where it should go. So I just kind of turn it there. And the oven is actually below the counter. So, for me, and the knobs are at the bottom of the oven on the one that I have. So you really have to bend over, and kind of lazy. I don't want to bend over. So I just kind of have a feel for it. So it's right around 400. So I leave the skillet in there for like 15 minutes to get that skillet nice and hot. And while I'm doing that, I'm getting the chicken thighs. And you could use any kind of chicken pieces. And really, this is for pieces, not for whole. If you do whole, you have to kind of do a different style. But basically, what I do is I season it. And I have these, like, quite a while back, I got this bag of seasoning, of different spices and seasoning from McCormick. And one of those was this fajita seasoning. I'm just trying to use it. So I just have been using this fajita seasoning. I just finished it today, though. So you season your chicken. And then after it's been seasoned and kind of chilling, after 15 minutes, you take the skillet out. Quite a bit of butter. Let the butter melt. Skin side down in the pan. Back in the oven, 15 minutes. 15 minutes up, pull the chicken out. Flip the chicken over so now the skin side is up. Back in for another 15 minutes. And that will crisp up your skin really, really nice. And that's what I've been having that's what I had for dinner tonight. Made that with some rice and then some Brussels sprouts that I had. So I took the Brussels sprouts, sliced them in half. I had some onion lying around, so I used that as well. Put that into a small, shallow pan, olive oil, salt, and then the other thing I have from McCormick is this Vegetable Delight seasoning. So evidently, I didn't read it. But it's like seasoning for vegetables. Sprinkle that liberally over that. Put that in the oven, and I just put that in the oven the first stage. So for the first 15 minutes, and then it roasts it up really nice, gets a nice caramelization. Pull it out, set it aside, and then once that's all done, you pull the chicken out after 30 minutes now, and it's sizzling. It's got the butter still there, and then the chicken juices and the bits of like whatever pieces that are like now fried in this fatty butter. I just take it out, glaze a little bit of the top of the chicken to make the skin look a little bit nice. Dump the rest on top of the rice, which is probably very bad, for your caloric fat content, but tastes great. And that's a nice meal. So I recommend that. That's kind of what I have. I'll pick up like chicken pieces at the local Amish market here. It's fairly cheap. Actually, what the real deal is, they have this at the Amish market here. If you go to the chicken counter, they have this thing called chicken trimmings. And basically, these are pieces of mostly breast meat that have been just trimmed off with whatever they're doing in the butcher shop there, right? So they're making all kinds of chicken stuff, fried chicken and whatever, roasted chicken. So they'll trim off these like breast type pieces, white meat. And you get a whole bag, like a whole pound for $2. Man, that's a great deal. I used that to make chicken pot pie last weekend. That was really nice. That turned out well. Again, super simple. So what I did is I took, like I said, I buy those thigh pieces, right? And they have the one thigh bone. And I'll buy that every week, and I'll use it in different ways, whether it's roasting it or maybe I'll do yakitori style chicken here as well. And so I'll slice it. Usually I'll slice out the bone. I take the bone, I toss it into a container I have in the freezer, and I just let it sit. And after a while, I get a whole like stack of bones. So for the chicken pot pie, I just took those bones, tossed it in a pot, covered it with water, boiled it for an hour, created a broth, tossed the pieces of chicken that I'm going to use for the the pot pie in it. Let that cook for like 15 minutes. Drained it all out. Separated the bones and the meat from the broth. Reserved the broth, and then shredded the chicken. And of course, the bones, the thigh bones, have still some thigh meat on it. So pull that off. So I've got this mixture of like dark and wet chicken meat. Then you go into a saucepan, butter, like half stick of butter, half, chop up half a yellow onion, saute that a bit till it turns translucent, add some flour, cook the flour off, add some broth, create a roux, add some milk, make a nice white sauce, add the chicken, season it a little bit, some frozen peas and carrots and peas, carrots, and chicken and corn, or whatever you have, really. Roll out some pie crust, form it all in a skillet, put it all together, cover it, toss it in the oven, cook it an hour for 375, 400. Perfect chicken pot pie. Super simple. That turned out really well. And surprisingly, last week, I took it to my friend's house. She was having a bunch of us over, and so I got a little bit excited to make this chicken pot pie. So I forgot to actually cut the slits for the venting, right? So it's fully rolled. You roll the sides, so it's fully sealed. I didn't think about it till it was done cooking. But I forgot to cut the slits, and I forgot to put the egg wash on top. So it wasn't as beautifully brown as it could have been. It kind of had that dull browning to the crust, but turned out pretty well. And surprisingly, it didn't explode. Oh. That coffee is turning out well. So the coffee has really chilled down now. It's pretty much cold because I do have the air conditioning running tonight because it's been surprisingly warm, and here in Baltimore, it's been quite humid. So it gets a little bit stuffy if I didn't turn the AC on. So I've got the AC running. So the coffee is quite cool at this point, but really still nice. Like a lot of the as it's cooled down, the what do you call it? The really bright citrusy aspect of it has mellowed out. It's just a much more mellow coffee now. Really enjoyable still. And nice. I mean, it's a different exploration of this coffee. And I buy all the coffees for Spro, so these are all coffees that I really know pretty well. But it's really interesting to do it this way because now I get to see a different side of it. Especially now that we're about an hour and a half into it. And, most of the time when you're drinking coffee, you're not really going to drink it over an hour and a half period. So to see how it performs over a long term like this is really quite interesting. Ooh. I finally got some shoes back, by the way. That reminds me. Let me go grab those. I'll show you them. So about a year ago, I found this cobbler from YouTube. He does a bunch of videos on how he recrafts shoes and makes new soles and does all this crazy work. And so I was really interested in his work. And he's been working this one pair of shoes for me for the past year. But I wanted to have these other pair of shoes that I have. I wanted to do some work on them. So 2 weeks ago, I was down there in Falls Church, and these are some just dress shoes, right? They're made with what they call museum calf. And museum calf is this type of leather. As you can see, it's got this this hole. I don't know if you can see it too well, but basically it has this kind of almost like an aniline dyed chrome look to it. Right, oh, here, that's better. So you can kind of see that it's a little bit splotchy in the finish, but it's really quite pretty. So these are some Oxfords that I had, and in this style. But the what I really wanted was, and they had rubber soles, as you can see, but the original rubber soles were kind of flapping off, and so it was kind of like wearing out. So that was kind of a pain. But let me see if we can. But so I asked them to redo that and then add something called toe taps. And toe taps, it's, for me personally, it's more of a decorative thing. I think there's some reason. I think it's to preserve the toe, of course. And maybe tap dancers would use something like this. But basically, I had him put these on. And these are stainless steel. These are stainless steel toe taps that have a brass plating on them. But basically, they're there to protect the toe. But I think it's just a pretty, accessory to a shoe. And you can kind of hear it. So these ones are actually made by a company called, see if it'll zoom in, a little focus on that. Oh, maybe it'll say it. Come on. Everything is in focus except for that. There it is. These are what's made by a company called Triumph. Triumph. There we go. Triumph toe taps. And yeah, so he actually cuts into the sole a little bit to fit it, so it's really nice and flush and smooth. And then he grinds down the tip of the toe. And let's focus on that. But anyway, really well done, really nice. It's a place called Bedo, B-E-D-O, Bedo's Leatherworks. He's got a channel here on YouTube. If you have any interest in like shoes and leatherwork, that's really an interesting channel to follow. Or if you need to have your shoes resoled, he's a great guy to go to. The work is just beautiful. I mean, it really, really done a stellar job. Like I said, a year ago, I went down to him and I started having these shoes to be recrafted, these work shoes that I have. And it's taken a while. Like it's been a really involved process because we're trying to recraft these shoes from basically they're becoming tattered when I gave them to him. And he's essentially redone the entire thing. Like you got this shoe, right? Let's say this is the shoe that I'm talking about. So you've got your uppers here, your sole, you got your interior lining. So on the original shoe, it was more like this kind of Timberland look. So this kind of veg tan leather, natural colored, and then it had a fabric lining, and the fabric lining had worn out. It was fraying. It was all kind of messed up. So we put a suede lining in, recrafted the uppers, ripped off the soles, put new welts, new footbed, new cork, put a shank in, and then put on these synthetic soles. I mean, so it's taken a while. But the problem when you do recrafting like this is that, well, when you build a shoe, you're actually using what they call a last, right? And the last is what gives the shape of the shoe to the leather. And so you build the shoe around this last. And when you have a shoe that's worn in, you would want to have a last that's made to the exact dimensions of your foot. Unfortunately, we don't have that for him to work off. So he made this shoe, turned out to be quite narrow for my foot. So when I finally got it back the first time, it was pretty narrow. So we've been working on it, and he's been stretching it out, and so finally it's to the point, I think now, where the last fitting that I had, it was pretty close, just a little more stretching, and then I'll be ready to wear and then do the break-in period. So maybe by next week we'll have that, and I'll show you those. But I tell you, I've been doing these shoe things. It's it seems kind of weird and maybe a little bit geeky, but when you have shoes that are nicely crafted, it's really kind of a pleasure to wear. Like, it really feels comfortable. I haven't worn these since the taps were put in, because I was actually working on a video for the channel about the toe taps. It's almost finished, so I can finally wear them again. So we're getting down. We're into the point where you can see here. You can kind of see the discoloration from the band. So we're well into where the second band would be. So we're getting down towards the end. It's a little bit bright, like there's a tingling sensation on the tongue. Still enjoyable. I mean, it's a good cigar. It's not as dynamic as, say, let's say the Crook of the Crown from Stolen Thrones. That was really just like this beautiful, like, flavors and powerhouse, and just a really great cigar. This is good. This is solid. I guess one of the questions people would ask is, like, would you buy it again? Would you buy more? It's good. However, it doesn't have that oomph. I like a certain level of oomph, a little bit of robustness to a cigar. So, I wouldn't necessarily add it to my usual lineup. But it's still very enjoyable. One of the cigars that I really like from Drew, that I believe that Willie Herrera was one of the blenders on, is their T52 Bellicoso Stock Cut Maduro. That's a great cigar, man. I really, really enjoyed that one. I don't really get to smoke those very much anymore, because now they've come to the point where they run $15 to $18. That's quite a lot. Like I've said in previous shows, I tend to be gun shy when it comes to cigars especially when they push to $15 and more. I get a little bit gun shy on that. Although I did go to a cigar dinner last week with Tobacco Leaf with Raul, and it was was a cigar dinner where we went to Ruth's, sponsored by Ruth Chris, with Whistle Pig whiskey. So they had 4 different types of Whistle Pig whiskeys. They start off with 2 different cocktails, and they did a 10-year Whistle Pig, and then a 15-year Whistle Pig, and then a Whistle Pig that was done was a blend of Whistle Pig whiskeys that had been, I guess, matured in, I think, a sherry and a port and one more type of used cask, and that was really interesting. But this cigar dinner was a Davidoff cigar dinner. So that was really, you got 3 Davidoff cigars. You got the, what did we get? We had, let me look it up. We start off with the Davidoff Grand Cru Robusto, and then went to the 702 Series 2000. And then we had the Nicaragua Robusto. Like, when it comes to like, since we're talking about priced your cigars, Davidoff is one that I don't usually smoke because, Davidoff, you're talking about $20 and up for a cigar. So, we're talking like maybe almost $50 to $60 in cigars at this dinner. So it was pretty much worth it. But like the Grand Cru Robusto, man, that was really good. Really good. The construction, the flavor. It's not that kind of robust flavor that I was talking about that I really enjoyed nowadays. It was much more mellow, much more complex. Maybe kind of a mature smoke, but really enjoyable. And then Brian also gave me this one, the Davidoff Special R, and that was excellent as well. I mean, Davidoff really makes wonderful cigars. They're just at a price point that I'm not really they're not at a price point that I can commit to, if you know what I mean, right? I mean, do any of you guys smoke the Davidoff? And I don't know if you guys have been like actually making comments. My main screen has been unable to connect, and I don't know if my phone is actually updating anymore either. So if you have been making comments, my apologies because I am unable to see them at the moment. Maybe I can try to do another screen and see if we can grab that. So it's probably going to get choppy for a moment here. Oh. Oh, there we are. I see. Okay, I just opened another window. And I do see some comments here. So let me go back through them here. Tony says, I wonder if the dryness is affecting the flavors. I wonder. That's a good question. But, I have to say, the cigar has not been dry. There's been no evidence of dryness other than the fact that it's just been sitting in the bag. It could be. And then Rusty, Blue Apron. Blue Apron. You use Blue Apron, Rusty? The chef uses Blue Apron? I'm surprised. Or are you just wearing the Blue Apron because you see yourself as the new Thomas Keller? And then Tony says, just lit up an AJ Fernandez Bella Artis Maduro following my shrimp salad for dinner. Yes, excellent. And Tony also loves the R series. That is a good cigar. And the Aniversario and Escuro, yes. Oh, that's for the Davidoff. Yes, okay. Now it's on delay again when you did it. Okay, so for some reason, it's not showing up on my phone. So, okay, and since we're getting delayed, I will close this other window again so that we will be a little bit smoother now. All right, we're rolling. Yeah, I don't know why the phone isn't doing it. I'm surprised. Let me just shut that down and bring it back. Maybe that will help. Okay, now maybe this will work. Okay, so I just restarted my app, my YouTube app on the phone, and it is now showing some updated chats. They're good. There we are. Yes. It's on delay again. When you did that, delay is fine. No delay. Yes, good. Perfect. Yeah, this older computer is I'm maxing it out by doing this. Like when we started doing the earlier live streams, I was actually so there's multiple ways to do a live stream, right? So right now I'm using the YouTube interface, so it's just YouTube in a browser and it's streaming the whole thing. And basically, I'm feeding the camera and the audio into the computer, and that sent it straight to Facebook, to YouTube. The other way to do it is to use some kind of third-party software. So there's something called OBS, which is called Open Broadcast Software, which allows you to do a lot more complexity as far as screen graphics and if you've seen like if you remember earlier this summer, I was doing the Friday night music stuff, the '80s, Friday night '80s, and that I had a lot of like on-screen graphics and did multiple camera angles, so you can stream from that. So I was doing from OBS to Facebook, and I think that worked fairly well. Then I was moving to when we started doing this show, I was running OBS on top of it was going from OBS feeding to YouTube, and that's when we're having all those like synchronization issues. So it was that just didn't work out very well. So we got rid of that. So maybe at some point I'll get a new laptop and then we'll be rolling. We can get back to more fanciness. All right, so Tony says Eladio Diaz does some master series by year, which have been tasty. Oh, that's the Davidoff guy, right? Because I know that Davidoff does that one. The one that I really liked was they have that Chinese Zodiac release every year. I thought my favorite of that one was the Year of the Snake. I thought that was really, or was it the Rat? I think it was the Year of the Snake. I thought that was really an excellent smoke. I think that was like maybe $27. I bought that once. But that's one I'll try. If it comes out again, I'll try that again. Maybe I think they come out in January, February, when the Chinese New Year happens. So we're getting down to the wire on this one. It's been pretty good so far. So Tony says his favorite was the horse and the sheep. I just remember, that's the thing. I don't remember. I think it was the snake. It could have been the horse or the sheep. Now, what I wonder with Davidoff, like, so those Zodiac years, are they obviously because they're changing every year? There's a different blend for those cigars. What I wonder is, will those cigars always be that flavor profile? Will they try to craft it to that style every year or whenever that year? So let's say like the horse. Will the horse, the year that it came out, be the same as when it comes out again? I wonder. But the thing is, with the Chinese Zodiac, unlike the Western Zodiac, it's by years, and there's 12. So it's only once every 12 years. So once every 12 years, by the time it comes around again, we may have forgotten exactly what they tasted like. So Rusty's saying, can you or Tony provide insight? I used to smoke a brand called El Rico Habano when I smoked a full-bodied cigar. Do they still El Rico Habano? If I remember, and Tony probably knows more about this than I do, but if I remember correctly, that's made by that guy down in Miami. What is? Or was that a La Gloria offshoot? Okay, so Tony says that's a La Gloria offshoot, which I don't think they make. George, welcome back. Thanks for coming back. George says, I would imagine it depends on the tobacco. Recreating at the exact taste isn't easy. Agreed. Like, one of the ones that I think of the most when I think about recrafting a cigar is was it Davidoff? Davidoff did the LE series. And I remember we got the LE05 back in 2005, and that was stellar, just a stellar smoke. It was very kind that one of my good friends, David Knopf, gifted me a box. And man, just a wonderful, wonderful smoke. I really kind of hoarded that cigar. I smoked the last cigar out of that box maybe now 2 years ago. Still a wonderful, and that was something that when the company re-released the LE line, they did this box collection. I think you guys remember this, where they did all of the LE series as re-releases except for the '05. And evidently they just, I think the story, I mean, Tony would know this more, but evidently the story is that they just couldn't recreate it. Maybe they didn't have the tobacco or whatever. And then I think they came out with the LE05 again later. And then one of the great deals that I found was I was at in 2019. Yeah, it was 2019 in April. I was up in Boston for a trade show, for the coffee trade show. So after the trade show, I drove up to New Hampshire to go visit Two Guys Cigars. And Two Guys Cigars is a really interesting place. They've got a massive selection. They're a big company. They do a lot of business. They do a lot of cigars. And at the counter, they had this big case that had just a lot of unbanded cigars, random cigars. And I was talking to Mr. Jonathan, who's if you watch the Cigar Authority podcast, he's one of the guys on there. And turns out he was the guy that was helping me at the store. And it didn't click right away. It wasn't until we were well into our interaction that I finally realized that this voice is the voice of Mr. Jonathan. And so, but he was like, try these. One of the ones he let me try was these unbanded cigars that he actually told me were LE05 overruns, and they were like $6. So I foolishly only bought like 5 of them. I really should have spent all my money and bought all of them. So I imagine they're completely gone by now. It's been a year and a half. So, but that was a great find. So George says, I would imagine it depends on the tobacco. Oh, we have said that recreating tactics and easy. And then that was the third. Tony says the 30th anniversary LE05 is getting there. Oh, so you still have some more of those 30th anniversaries? That's something to keep. That's something to keep. And he does. Excellent. This coffee is still doing very well. Very well. I'm really, really happy about that. So now we're at this point. We're pretty far into the cigar. The cigar's reached a point where, even though I'm holding it right at the edge, it's starting to be pretty hot for my fingers. We smoked it all the way down to the nub. Ow. All right, one more puff. You get to that point. I don't know if you have this thing where you get to the point where you got all the way down, you smoke the whole cigar, and you want to puff more, but like you feel like you're inhaling some of the smoke, so you kind of want to choke or cough. You ready? It is time for the road trip, Rusty. Oh man, one more puff. Ow, gosh, way too hot. All right, that was good. That was the Herrera Esteli Miami Corona Gorda and the Sumava Tencaploid Yellow Honey Process. Well, I guess that's good for this week. Thank you for tuning in. Do share this with your friends. Let people know. Tell them to come join us next Thursday on 8 o'clock again. And it's been a good time again, as always. Take a Match Grove Roast. I saw that on your post. I was wondering what you were using to actually stick into the bottom of that Mil Diaz. That Mil Diaz also was an excellent smoke. And John Huber, he responded to what we talked about in that show. What's up next? Well, you know what? That's a good question. Sometimes I get pushed behind and I don't really get to do the show notes until kind of the last minute. Usually today I wasn't able to get to do them until this afternoon. So I was doing it at the shop while I was working. And then the cigars, of course, are here. So I not, I'll be honest with you, I don't know what's coming next. I should have wrote more of that, but I will post those in the show notes coming up in the next day or two. But it'll be some good stuff. This next round of cigars for the next 4 weeks, Raul will help me pick them out, and I think there's some good ones. I just don't recall what they are, unfortunately. But anyway, see you guys next week. Hope it's a good one, and don't forget to catch Star Trek Discovery. And I guess it's okay to go watch the debates now and see how the president and the vice president are doing. All right, so until next week, have a great one. See you guys next time.